I never wanted to do YouTube videos, but I think this is the best way to outsource the pain, the pure, I don't know what to say, just a way to get it out healthy. In other words, not doing anything, like not being angry, and I definitely think my story can help other people. It's the holidays. Woohoo! The black sheep of the family, the ostracized, oh. Well, at least I have some friends. Yeah, so. Showed like a sort of psychopathy, I think, and that's why I am kind of even more disturbed that I'm posting this video now, because after watching that I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to like post videos and have people think that I am doing this for attention or anything. But I do think my story can help other victims of narcissistic abuse, so I'm gonna go ahead and go with it. But timing sometimes is off. But yeah, it was very interesting, especially from the detectives, and I will call them detectives because that's what they were excellent. So, now my battery's going out. That should not be happening. Why is my battery going out? Okay, hold on 1 second. Maybe that charger doesn't work. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So the last thing I want to be seen as like someone who's doing or talking just to get attention, because that would be horrible. But I noticed something between my aunt, who has taken over my mom's, malignant narcissistic abuser's estate. I was researching her Twitter feed account, and lo and behold, she is a huge fan of Melania Trump and Donald Trump. Which is all good. Like, I studied political science, didn't finish college. My mother kind of kicked me out and my son out and said that we need to go behind a homeless shelter. When I was accepted to college when I was 15, she said I need to accept reality and realize that college wasn't my thing. But that's just what, unfortunately, narcissistic abusers do. So back onto that. My son is Hispanic, and I'm researching my aunt's tweet feeds. And she's like, thank you, Melania. Thank you, Donald, for coming to the Alabama football game. So I have nothing personally against Melania Trump or Donald Trump. They're politicians. They're people. I think Melania is very beautiful. I don't know what I think about Donald Trump. I don't think anybody knows what about Donald Trump. I don't think anyone knows about him. But, or thinks anyone knows what they think about him. But make a long story short, my son is Hispanic. So I'm researching the tweets that she's making. My mother is dying of stage 4 COPD cancer. Stage 4 COPD and lung cancer and 3 broken ribs. 5 years ago, I got tossed into what is called, thank God for this research online. You know, it feels good to research it and realize it's not personal. Narcissistic, malignant narcissist, which my mother was, and I don't hate her. She was abused severely as a child, and also suffers from some sort of bipolar disorder, which she's been diagnosed with. So somehow malignant narcissism can combine with bipolarism, because when she's not in the malignant narcissist aspect, she is the best and kindest woman that you've ever met. Like, it goes from beautiful to, so there's the double, anyway. Yeah, so I don't completely hate against my mother, but my mother, when she goes on that end of the spectrum. But my aunts, back on to my aunts, and then I will talk so much more. I'm glad I was gonna, like, make myself look pretty and talk about this. And now I am actually healing. But, so yes, my mother 5 years ago inherited $1 million from my great uncle. And he was gay. And my great uncle, married a Jewish Russian, and he kind of rescued my mother back in the day from sexual abuse that she was going through in her family as a child. So he left all of his inheritance to her. And then the narcissistic abuse, after she got that money, she told me my son would be nothing more than a male prostitute. So it's the other functioning going on in her brain. This is not, I don't know what's going on when someone can flip from mode to mode. Anyway, back onto my auntie. And I already knew after researching, it was 5 years. 5 years ago, my mother inherited the money, my grandfather died. So my mother moved into the house and kind of took control. And my son and I were never allowed to come back. And this is after my mother saying, you and your son will be nothing more. Or she said, your son will be nothing more than a male prostitute. Back when I was 25 in college. She told me, you and your son need to go be homeless. So there's some sick sadism going on here too as well with this narcissistic abuse. Okay, the ironic thing, and if we want to make light of it and make it funny, which I'm trying to do because it's the holidays, and and I'm healing. Thankfully, about 3 months ago, I called my mother, and she actually answered the phone after 5 years of ignoring me. And 5 years of not being able to speak to my grandmother or my sister. Those 5 years I have been, like, okay, like a lot of victims of narcissistic abuse, it happens in childhood. My mother never raised me. I wasn't expecting this to happen midlife. If I was maybe younger, I can look back in retrospect, maybe a little bit younger, I could have made sure I had a husband or family group or family unit. But I never realized that this, as soon as she inherited the money and my grandfather died, she moved into my grandmother's house. She kept her home, empty for the past 5 years. It's empty. There's like an empty home. And, yeah, so. My son and I have been homeless and human trafficked and sex trafficked and the whole gamut of everything you can think that could happen to people. But my aunt, who I've never really known, I thought she was cool, like the cool aunts. When I was working a job 5 years ago in Singapore, I was working for a drone company as business developmental management. And then I got these really weird texts from my aunt's friends saying, we know what you're up to. I'm like, what? I totally ignored it. I'm like, what are these people on? I was living, like, Singapore is beautiful. Like, I was in Australia. I actually went on the flight to Australia. I didn't really want to go to Australia. Like, wait. I really didn't want to pay the price for the flight to Australia. But I was searching. Of course, I've always wanted to go to Australia. But I was searching the internet, and there was a $40 ticket to Australia. And I'm like, wow, that's a really cheap ticket from Singapore to Australia. I booked it thinking it was a hoax or like a computer glitch, and it was not. It was actually Air Singapore right after it got shot down from Russia. So I ended up getting a $40 ticket. And so, like, I literally starved in Singapore because Singapore is the most expensive country in the world, and Australia is very expensive too. And then I got these like texts from my aunt's friend saying, oh, we know what you were up to? Hello? No, you don't. So, here's where the Star Wars comes into play. My aunt, I don't even want to call her my aunt. This person is a huge Star Wars fan. Which is okay. Yeah, I get it. Okay. She married a 21-year-old man from the Navy who is also a Star Wars fan at one of these conventions she goes to and designs costumes for. Okay, all good for it. All good for it. That's alright. Do your thing, auntie. But then I started getting attacked when I was actually working for a real drone company. So, this man, who's now in his 30s, and my aunt's now in her middle, I would say, 60-something, they honed into my mother. They became her best friends. And, my son is Hispanic. My son was told he could never come back home. There's so much sickness and illness, like, within, and she's actually tweeting to Dr. Drew, oh, we have one of those in our family, but no one will ever believe her. And my son and I were both scapegoated from what I read online, blah, 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 blah. And it's really interesting because the day my granddad died, my mother said my son would be nothing more than a male prostitute. And this is called trauma bonding when it comes to narcissistic abuse. It's like, even when my dad died, she made sure no one was around, and she came up to me. My dad died when he was 40. My adopted father, when he was 40, and she came up to me when no one was around and says, oh, you were crying at the funeral? She said, everyone said you were crying about the money. I'm like, what? That broke my heart. And so, same thing with my granddad's funeral. Like, 25 years later, she came up to me and said, when no one's around, you and your son will be nothing more than prostitutes. I'm like, oh my god, what the hell is happening? Well, apparently I found out 4 years later, when my mother finally answered the phone on a random occasion, that apparently my father was bisexual and lovers with Salvador Dali. Okay. Well, and my father left her for a Ford model and architects. And apparently, from what I've read, narcissistic abuse can stem from the father figure leaving the mother at a young age with offspring that they just discard. So, that being said, I don't know what I am. I just know I have a kind heart most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Why did I even bring myself into the equation? And then I start feeling like a narcissist, and it becomes embarrassing. But there's so many things in this particular case with my family. There's racism, narcissistic abuse, homophobia, I don't want to blame Trump for this or anything, but like political divide. And so, yeah, my aunt, I found her Twitter page today. And she actually texts Dr. Drew. We have one of those in our family, and thank God nobody believes her. And then she actually thanked Melania Trump for showing up to the Alabama football game. So it's been 5 years. 2 months ago, my mother contacted me and said she was sorry. She said, Michelle, this has all been a mistake. Please come back. I'm so sorry. I want to leave a legacy. I'm sorry. And like my heart was like, from what I've read, when you're scapegoated or you are the scapegoat or black sheep of the family, I was like, thank you, Mom. Like, oh my God. And it took me a couple of about a couple weeks to register in my head. And I was like, Mom needs my help. She doesn't need my help. But something's wrong. So I drove down there. And literally, they're leaving her to die on a couch. Yeah. While they're watching Trump, they were going to Alabama games and thanking Melania Trump for showing up. While then they tried to call the police on me. They tried to call and say I was crazy. That's police didn't believe whoever was calling. And my son, I told him, I said, hey, about 2 weeks before I went down to the state where my mother is very ill. And I told my son, hey, Mom, she's not doing well. And he also, from his heart, he went down there too. And he was told to never come back again, like he's always been told. And he ended up getting a job. A job in a town a couple of miles away, working as a waiter. And this is what I really want to get and hone down on, especially when I'm in a better mind frame, is the whole narcissistic abuse, homelessness, sex trafficking, discard, and it happens to be, I think, a huge problem here in America because you don't see it in European countries. You do. Don't get me wrong, bad families happen everywhere. But it seems to be more of a failure here in America where, people can just discard their children, and at the age of 17, yeah, you go out in the streets, you just go be your own. You don't see very many Asian homeless people here in America. You don't see very many European homeless in America. You don't see very many Latin homeless in America, unless there is, mental illness. But because when my mother inherited this money and my aunt got involved, after 5 years ago, I never thought I would be homeless, even though there's empty homes. My mother has an empty townhouse in one of the most beautiful, rich cities in the world, and empty, that no one has lived in 5 years. But my son is now being sexually he's there trying to sell him sexually. So 2 days after 2 days after my mother inherited this money and my aunt got involved, after 5 years ago, my mother has an empty townhouse in one of the most beautiful, rich cities in the world, and empty, that no one has lived in 5 years. But my son is now being sexually trying to sell him sexually. Yeah, so 2 days after I left my mom's house. I'm like, enough is enough. I was like, this is too much abuse. I realized, thank God, it was all about the money. It wasn't me. It wasn't me as a person. These are people preying on my mother for her money. And perhaps my mother wanted it to happen anyway, which is okay. But my son ended up homeless, and like I hadn't seen him in like 3 years either. And he said, Mom, this man, he's a famous hairdresser, and I've been living in his garage. I'm working at a dishwasher at a place, and he keeps insisting every night he comes home for him to do a sexual thing with him. He said, no, Mom, I'm not doing that. So he's sleeping out on the streets, and yeah, there is definitely a connection between narcissistic abuse and sex trafficking and homelessness and just decay in the family unit that shouldn't be there. And I don't know why, for some reason, in America, or it happens also in other cultures. Don't get me wrong, I have a lot of Asian friends who have been disinherited because they married the wrong guy. But married with the wrong guy, they still have family. There's no family unit. Like, there's just scarred. The whole narcissist. And if I sound like I'm rambling, I am. And hey, who else can say they got $1 million and disinherited from $1 million by a 60-something-year-old and a 21-year-old Navy guy who go to Star Wars conventions? The Force is with you, I suppose? My mother, be realistic, be realistic. Yet she gave it all away. 2 people. That live and breathe for Star Wars. And hate Latinos, because my son is a Latino. And that hate me because I'm part Asian and I'm part, like, I'm mixed. And, like, these people, like, my heart is breaking, but I'm on the good end of it now because I was able to see it. I'm able to see it for what it's worth. So, I want to make better videos from now on here and out. And, the soul, like, it's your soul. It's not what your color is or who you come from. I can't, and I'm not perfect. I don't know what I would be diagnosed with, probably histrionic disorder or something, but I don't like hatred on people, and I don't like people that use their hatred. Because, for what? Like, we're only here once on this earth, and why hate? It doesn't make sense. Anyway, I've been rambling way too long. But yeah, I also found a lady's video in Australia about narcissists wanting to make their family go homeless and pushing into their brains that they're worth nothing. And so, I've got to get back on my feet and help myself so I can help my son. Put this all behind me and recognize this as abuse. Because it was abuse. There is no else word. I didn't do anything to deserve this. Well, that sounds really like victim. But I don't. Okay, I'm very outspoken. That's one thing. That's one thing I read about the black sheep of the family, that we can be outspoken. So maybe that's what it was. But I look forward to just right now understanding what happened, realizing it, and moving forward. not only for me, for my son and my mentally ill sister, who I'm going to end up taking care of, because I love her. And I love my mom. I wanted to go be by her side. I wanted to help her because I know she's wounded. But it didn't happen that way. She's on 30% brain oxygen. She's already signed her money over. It's called, not power of attorney, power of death. Power upon death. So I already knew everything was going to the aunt, and from what I read about narcissistic personality disorder, I already knew I would be discarded. But I wanted to help her heal. I think, or I thought, or I hope, but with my help, I thought, hey, let me get her on CBD oil or turmeric. Just like, I'm a yoga therapist, so I was wanting to get her, like, she's been on the couch for months, get her system running. The family around Star Wars was more into, oh, you're just here for the money, which is what my mother told me when my dad died when I was 15. So it becomes a double bind. It's like you can't even help your family because it's just fucked up. But, okay, bye. Oh my god, who had thought I would do a YouTube video looking like